So there's a lot of things you want to work on during the off week. What are some things that are kind of at the top of your list with your team?
Well, we're kind of in a self-evaluation phase right now on both sides of the ball, schematically, things like that. But then also, individually and as units, we're really taking a hard look to see, what are some things we've done well in these first 6 weeks, and what are some things that we need to improve on. And so the big focus is on self-improvement this week. Each coach is giving tangible things for each of the players to work on. And maybe something that is on the field, it might be something off the field, it might be something academically, something along those lines. But the idea is, what have we done well and what do we need to improve on? And so we're focusing on that this week.
It seems like from some of your comments throughout the year, you guys are really into advanced analytics. Is that accurate? Do you guys really study the advanced analytics of the game and what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a part of it. You can get too jammed up with that because, most good football teams will, show you one thing one week and then do something the next week. That's what I always laugh about. Well, what did they do last week? And then you look at the analytics and you say, well, you can be sure they're not going to do that this week. So, you don't know. But it's all part of it, and there's certain things for sure that you can find not only about your opponent but also about yourself.
Right next door, Nathan. I'm just curious. This is one of the things that you're doing for the first time now as a head coach going through an off week. Was there any kind of template that you used for that? Anything that you thought worked in the past? Other coaches you had worked under that is how you set this?
This week's a little different because we come back and we're playing on a Friday night. So it's a little bit different. We're going to come back and practice on Sunday, which is something typically you wouldn't do coming off of a bye week, but we will. So it's a little bit different, and we put it together based on what we thought was best for the team.
What is kind of the balance between wanting to give guys a rest, get them a mental break probably as much as a physical break, but also you're 6-0, you're kind of rolling. You probably want to try to keep an edge. Does that happen during the bye week, or does that resume next week?
Well, there's guys that was a physical game that we played on Saturday night, so guys need to get healthy again. We're a little battered, but that's what happens. 6 week in, and after you play a game like we did against Michigan State, but it's all kind of how you craft it during the week, and the way we're doing it is we're trying to get those guys healthy the best we can and be smart about it. But again, really focusing on enhancing the things that guys are doing well and improving on the things that they need to improve on.
You mentioned beginning of the season that as far as defensive game planning, you'd have very little role in that you kind of wanted to empower those guys. Looking back at the first 6 games, has that gone according to that kind of plan?
It has, yeah. Typically, after a game, we'll get in there, watch it with the offense. I'll go in there with the defense. We'll go through each position and talk about things that went well, things didn't go well. I will have watched the game and then go through if there's anything that we see. We'll talk it through, or issues that may have arisen in the game, and talk those things through, what we want to do next week and where we're headed. Usually personnel-based. I kind of let those guys do the schematics of it, but there's sometimes we have conversation. But those guys have owned it, and they've done a great job.
Why did you kind of go about it that way as a coach?
Well, I think first off, when you're running your side of the ball, you really want to do it your way. And, too many cooks in the kitchen isn't good. So those guys are doing their deal, and then they obviously report to me, and whatever they think is best, we'll have a conversation about it, move forward. But then also, being involved with special teams, being involved with the offense, you can only do so many things. And that's why, hired guys like Jeff and Greg and Larry who have such great experience that they can do it.
Second row left, Ari. Hey, Ryan. Obviously, you understand the importance of recruiting at a high level, and this program is still in a little bit of a transition period as you go through from coach to coach. I was wondering, in next year's class, the state of Ohio has maybe the deepest crop of talent that it's had in a long time just in the state. I was just wondering, in a coach in your position, you're recruiting very well right now, but to have that base of talent in your home state next year, what can that do for you in terms of managing this transition?
It's huge. It's huge because in recruiting for us, our foundation is Ohio for sure, and the Midwest, and then we supplement it with national guys. But when you have so many talented guys in the state of Ohio that are right down the street, it's huge for us. And it's great to have those guys come visit. It's great to have all those guys come visit us on Saturday night, get a feel for what the game day atmosphere was like on Saturday, which was awesome. And it's so many recruits in, and so it's working at a high level right now. And I think there's so many guys in Ohio right now that just want to stay home and be a part of this. So it's going well.
Over the course of Urban Meyer's tenure, he took on average about 3 less Ohio kids per class than Jim Tressel did before him. I know that might not sound like a lot, but over the course of 4 years, it's almost 20% of the roster less of Ohio kids. I was wondering, what's your ideal philosophy in terms of how to manage that when you have that? Do you want more? Did you like the balance of Ohio kids then? And just kind of when you have a class like this, what is that like?
Good question. I just think that you have to just look at who you think fits your roster at that time, who's good enough to play. Ideally, you'd have as many Ohio guys as you can have. But sometimes it kind of fluctuates based on the talent in that recruiting class, and you do the best you can to go recruit the best at each position that fit here, because that's another part of it. What the guys that fit. So for sure, if somebody is from the state of Ohio, then they're going to have a leg up on anybody else in the country in recruiting, because this is their home state and they grew up being Buckeyes, so that matters.
Right next door, Steven.
Like you talked about, this is the first time you've gone through being a bye week as a head coach, and this is usually a time where a lot of recruiting gets done. How do you balance, maintaining those relationships with guys that are already committed within the 2020 class versus trying to get out ahead with the 2021 class as well?
Well, that's why you work so many hours and you have so many people who do a great job within the staff here. There's a lot going on. There was a lot going on Saturday. I don't know the total number we had, but it was a ridiculous amount of people that were here. And I thought Mark and everybody involved in his staff did a great job organizing all that and handling it well. I think recruits and their families understand that on game day they're not going to get as much time face-to-face with the coaches or anything. They're coming for the atmosphere, and they understand that. And all the feedback we got was that it was a home run.
And right behind it, Dan.
Ryan, you talked about that self-evaluation. When you look back at the first 6 games, what do you say is what's one thing you think this team has done really well, and what's one big thing that you really need to improve going into the second half of the year?
I don't know if it's one thing. I think our chemistry has been really good the first 6 games. I think we have played with toughness. I think seeing guys tackle, run to the ball, way guys are running the ball, the way we're blocking on the line of scrimmage. The way the quarterback's playing. I mean, I think the quarterback's tough. I watch the way he takes shots and he stands in there. I think our team is getting a little bit of that identity. Now we have to keep that going. We have to keep building. And really, that game on Saturday night was the first time we played 60 minutes. We had to get that thing into the second half and go win the game in the second half. So that's going to be the challenge moving forward. I think higher end execution, just in all phases, is going to be critical. When you kind of play the way we did in the first 5 games, where it gets a little lopsided. You're talking 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. When you play a team like Michigan State and you get some of that real resistance right there, and some back and forth, you can get their attention, and how important execution is going to be in the details.
What are the things you feel like you can get accomplished when you have 2 weeks between a game instead of just one like you do in most weeks?
Well, a couple things. I mean, you get healthy. You get guys to heal up from the first 6 games. You get a chance to take a deep breath and get an idea where you're at. Evaluate each player, each unit, where they're at, where they want to go, or where we want them to go. And then you get 2 weeks to game plan, which is good too. You get to try some things, throw it out, work through it. A little bit more time to prepare, and that's always good.
Ryan, I think since the moment you got here, there have been teams linking you to the NFL going back at some point. If the Redskins or somebody called right now, what would the response be?
Yeah, and I appreciate you asking. And I think, being in a place like Ohio State, anytime there's success, things like this are going to come up. I don't ever really want to talk about any of that stuff. I just, I love it here, and this is where I want to be. So no matter whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, even for the next 5, 10, hopefully 20 years while I'm here, I really don't want to comment on that, because I don't think it's good for anybody.
Football stuff then. You seemed like early in the year that you were, anxious or nervous if Justin was running. What the depth situation is like. He's starting to do it a little bit more, and he's taking a couple shots. Are you still holding your breath every time he runs, or are you getting more comfortable with that idea since he's responded to that with some toughness?
Yeah, a little bit of both, a little bit of everything. I think that he's shown toughness. He's dropped his pads. He's taken care of himself. He has taken a few shots, but you can see how dynamic he is with his feet and how he changes the game. And so there's that give and take. There's a calculated risk every time that happens. And again, we don't want him taking shots. We don't want to expose him, but at the same time, he's a talent, and he's a load. It's not like he's skinny or he's going to take too many shots. And he actually delivers the blow on some guys. That's the way he's built. So he's big and strong, which really helps. But certainly, we don't want to be in a situation where we have to run him too much. But when you get in the red zone or you get in those certain situations where it's such an advantage for us, then if we got to go win the game, we're going to do it. And he understands that, and he's been great about it. And he's shown the toughness that we need to do that.
Second row middle, Bruce.
You have a Rose Bowl MVP defensively on this team who we don't see too much, Brendan White. Is he odd man out in your defensive change from a year ago?
No, he's in there, and he's working at it. He's learning that bullet position, and he's had some good snaps. He's had some snaps he wants to improve on, and that's a guy that this week is a great opportunity for him to find out what is he doing well and what are the things that he needs to improve on, just like everybody else. But yeah, Pete and Brendan and Jocelyn and Justin Hilliard, they're all kind of in that role, and they've been kind of sharing the snaps, and so I know all those guys want to play more, but I think as we take a chance to look at the back of those 6 games, they'll all have some things they need to improve on.
Is there a profile of a team that his presence on the field fits more? A tailback heavy team, a spread team? Is there a profile of a team that you've just played teams that your personnel fit how those teams are attacking you better than Brendan?
Yeah, I think that there's certain that hybrid position, that bullet is kind of a bigger safety who plays linebacker, and so if it's a little bit pass heavy, sometimes you'll see the bullet in there a little bit more. If it's heavy pass, it's more of a nickel, more of a defensive back, a corner type, and so that's the good thing for us, is that we have some different personnel groupings we can get into on defense now to counter what we're seeing on offense. And so the more things you can do, then obviously the more versatility you provide as a player. But no, Brendan's doing a good job in terms of learning the position. He jumped around a little bit in his position, so now that he's settling into this, I think that he played better this week. And he is improving over the last couple of weeks, and I think he's going to continue to improve.
I know no coach complains about having too many good players, but I also know you're invested in every player. You know their parents, all that, and you obviously know his father's situation. As a coach, do you ever feel bad, like the kid's working hard? It's just guys ahead of him are just a little bit better.
Well, I think certainly we all know that situation and are very sensitive to that. But at the end of the day, we just kind of meet with each guy, and that's what this week is really good for, is to have a great conversation about where they're at and where they need to go. And we care about all these guys, and that's really important, is to make sure that these kids understand that we have their back and that we have the resources that they need to make sure that they're successful. And each coach's responsibility, each player's responsibility is to build that connection so that they know that we're here for them. And I think when you do that, then you got something special going, and I feel that within the team right now.
Yeah, a while ago you said 5, 10, 20 years, as long as you're here and stuff. Sure you didn't want to add 28, that's how long Woody was here?
Oh, boy, I don't know if I can make it that long, but it'd be a good problem to have.
Oh, real quick, though, I will say this. You are a youngish man at 40. You're a first-time head coach. Your team has gone from, like, a big question mark for a lot of people preseason about where y'all fit with a new head coach and a new quarterback, new offensive line, to now y'all are number 3 in one poll, number 4 in the other, getting first-place votes. How do you temper being excited about your job, but with the fact that the season's half over? I mean, how do you deal with that? Because I would think you're pretty fired up right now.
Well, it's great to be 6-0, and I think that when we looked at our season, we saw this first 6 games as a chunk. We had a bye week, and then we have 2 games. We have a bye week, and then we finished with the last 4. And it's something we talked to the team about, and the first goal was to get 6-0, and here we are. So now we're entering into this next kind of phase here, and it's good to build confidence. It's good to know that everything that we're working on is paying off, because there's been a lot of hard work that's been put in here. There's been a lot of hours that have been put in here, physically, emotionally, mentally, meetings, lifts, workouts. I mean, there's so many of those things that have happened, and so to see that pay off is great. But we all know that doesn't mean anything if you don't win the next one. And so keeping that chip on our shoulder and making sure that we haven't proven anything yet, just that we have the capability to do well, but we're just halfway through the season and we got a long way to go. And so making sure that we have something to prove every single day we step on a practice field and on the game field is important.
Really quickie, with an offensive line, when you put it together, you never know exactly how tough it's going to be, at crunch time and stuff. Did you learn something about that group on Saturday night again that tells you it's not just, a bunch of great athletes out there, but they can stand up to a Big Ten football game?
I think we learned a couple things about the O-line. One was that when it was tough sledding early on, they didn't panic. They just kept swinging away. And I think the second thing, like you said, is that was a real defensive line that has got some really good players in there, and I thought they were physical. They were finishing guys downfield again, and they took a lot of pride in that. And to run for over 300 yards against that outfit is saying something. So I do. I think that goes to show you where our line is and what it's capable of. So all that means is just more expectation moving forward.
Conventional wisdom coming into the season was that Justin Fields wouldn't be the passer that Dwayne was, just because of Dwayne's numbers, what he's done. Are you surprised at all at the success he's had, and how would you compare those guys at the halfway point last year to this year, their growth? Is it similar? Is Justin ahead?
I just very different. Just very two different situations, I think. But both were unknown. Both had 0 collegiate starts coming into the season, which is amazing when you think back on it. But it was a situation where Dwayne was in the offense and just had to prove that he had the game experience and those type of things. Justin was much more of an unknown because he had just got here in January, and so he's growing every day. He knows what he needs to work on, but his leadership and his toughness is shown. And I think the guys in that locker room are appreciative of that. I think they see it. He's got a lot of areas to grow, a lot of things to work on. But if he continues to lead, if he continues to be tough, if he continues to be a leader in that locker room, then a lot of good things are going to happen.
How do you compare the two as passers? Just strictly from what you being a former QB coach, how do they?
One is kind of a more of a pocket guy who's a little bit longer, leaner, 6'5", maybe a little bit quicker release. The other guy is 6'3", thicker, stronger in the pocket. Guys can kind of bounce off of him in there. He's a little bit stronger in there. He'll stand in there a little bit more. He can create and extend plays, and he's got a very strong arm, and that thing comes out with pace when it comes out. So I think Justin can make a throw anywhere on the field at any point, whether it's in the pocket or when he goes to escape. There's not really an area of the field that he can't get the ball to, and a lot of times it's not even with his feet underneath him. He can get away with some of that stuff, and so all the things that we're cleaning up in terms of technique and getting the ball out on time, but he's very talented.
One more at the risk of pushing this. Have the Redskins contacted you?
No, like I said, no, but I'm not going to talk about that stuff. I really don't want to have any conversation about that.
Over here to the right, Clay.
Okay, let's forget Haskins plays for the Redskins. He's going through a very uncertain time in his career, about the direction of that team that he's on. Has he reached out to you? Have you tried to counsel him? If you would, what would you say to a guy where he is in his development?
Dwayne and I, speak regularly, but I hadn't really talked to him. I think since he played in the preseason game, I think it was in Cleveland. I think he played a preseason game in Cleveland. Yeah, talked to him before that and wished him nothing but the best of luck. But kind of busy here and running around. But no, it's the same thing. He's going to be fine. He's just got to keep working at it, keep staying strong, and he'll be fine.
Front row left, Doug.
Ryan, I was joking with Luke Farrell earlier this year about when he's going to come in your office and demand that he get the ball, and he said, of course I would never do that. But he catches a touchdown pass the other night, and he was saying he almost got emotional about it because he was so excited for the opportunity to contribute to his team and help that kind of thing. Obviously, Luke is doing his job blocking most of the time. Just what's that guy done to help this offense this year?
Well, he's done a lot, not just this year, but last year too. And we've played with several tight ends on the field. It's one of our more experienced groups coming into the season. When you're a tight end, you have to be able to do a lot of things. You have to be able to protect. You have to be able to run routes. You have to be able to run block. You have to do all those things. And to do that takes a special guy, and I think Luke does all of those things very well. He's not a guy that takes a lot of maintenance. You tell him something once, he gets it. And that's not easy as a tight end because you have to be involved in so many things. You have to be a high processor. He does that. And like you said, he doesn't bring a lot of attention to himself if he's not getting the ball or anything like that. Never heard any of that from Luke. And so proud that he made that big play, and we needed that play in that game. And not only the catch and being where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there, but then also to break a tackle, one of the better linebackers in the country in Bocce, and then scores a touchdown. I mean, that was great for him and well deserved.
Just the idea of, he was just talking about sort of like the emotion of the moment, and these, I mean, they're still young guys and they're giving everything to this. And he was saying, like, I got to score a touchdown at my dream school. Like, it was unbelievable. What does that tell you about these guys? And I think sometimes maybe it's easy for us to, it's a business, there's a lot going on, but there is an emotional component of this that you can tell sometimes when it comes out of these kids, it really means a lot to them.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying, because I think sometimes we just think this thing goes on and on and on, and they're just, they're players and everything. But like you said, these guys are kids that grew up in, some grew up in Ohio, some grew up wherever, but they grew up and dreamed of being in environments like they were on Saturday night, and to actually fulfill a dream after all the hard work that's been put in. And there's a guy who, he keeps putting it in, but really hadn't made a big play like that. And so you just never know. It's faith without results at times. You just got to keep trusting it and trusting it and trusting it. And then all of a sudden when it happens, it's like, this is why you do it. And great to see stories like that, because in a day and age where everybody wants, instant gratification, to see a guy work like that and then get his due is great to see.
Right behind him, Bill.
Ryan, you've remarked a couple of times about Justin's toughness, and I'm just curious maybe what you thought of him in those regards when he got here, how you've seen that develop, and as he tries to carve out this leadership position, how much does his willingness to go get tough yards help that?
I didn't have any expectations of him. I didn't, because I didn't know him really, other than just in the recruiting when he was coming up. But didn't spend a ton of time with him because he was committed to Penn State and then committed to Georgia. So we had a young man committed to us at the time. So it was a little bit, but didn't really get to go see him play or anything. So I didn't know. And then got around him a little bit, got to know him a little bit. But still, you don't know until you're in it, because we don't tackle the quarterback. And then to see the last couple games, the way he's taken a few shots, the way he's run the ball, and then come right back, that is some grittiness there. And that's very exciting.
You see his teammates taking to that? Is that, I mean, I know guys some are vocal, some aren't, but when you're trying to be a leader, something like that may be even more important than how much you might use your voice.
I just think when you're preaching toughness and your quarterback takes a shot right in the face, one that was, to me, was questionable, and then comes back and throws a fade in the corner of the end zone one week, and then lowers his shoulder and takes a shot in the thigh to score a touchdown late in the game, and on JK's touchdown run, or two of them, he's carrying out his fake, and then he's running down the field to help block. I mean, he was almost in the end zone before JK on the long run, and then the other one, he's leading to try to help block. And it just goes to show you what this kid's made of, And I think a lot of guys in the team are taking notice of that.
And you guys lead the country in rushing yards, total rushing yards. At the same time, you have been balanced. Passing yards are almost right there with it. Is that where you want to be? Is there anything else you'd like to see from the passing game, or are you pretty happy with the balance you guys have struck so far?
Yeah, it was kind of like, last year, we were a little bit more passing, and that's kind of how it played out as it went on. But I think we're very explosive in the pass game. And, again, tribute to the way that backs are running, the way we're blocking right now, because when you can run, that you can really control the game. I think we've done that so far. But like you're saying, as the game goes on and the season goes on, we get into these games, and we're going to have to throw at a high level. So that's going to be part of this. But certainly, any offense would tell you they want great balance.
Second row right, Tony.
Ryan, when Jeff Affley brings in this defense, we didn't really know exactly what it looks like. Now he's out there trotting 3 starting corners. And it seems to me that that third starting corner is kind of very important in allowing this to happen. So how would you rate, or how would you describe Shaun Wade's value in this defense?
I mean, I don't know how I could really put any kind of commentary on how valuable it is, but that's big. You see a lot of guys in college football try to get the ball to the slot receiver, whether it's RPOs or throws or whatever it is, that's the guy they target. The guys on the outside, they're a little bit longer throws, and so in college, that guy gets targeted a lot. So you have to be talented. You have to be able to play the run. You have to be tough. You have to blitz like he did. You have to be able to play coverage. You have to play man-to-man on a deep ball. You have to be able to do all those things to be really good at that position. Otherwise, you have to keep, moving different body types in there based on what you're seeing. What Shaun gives us is great versatility, because he's kind of has all those skills.
And then not just covering those slot guys, but the way he was blowing up those screens.
Unbelievable. On that one screen that he made a play on, we were kind of outnumbered. That was a heck of a design by them. But we talk about how toughness and effort can overcome scheme, and there's two guys there that are blocking him. He kind of splits them and slows the screen runner down just enough, and then B.B. Landers gives great effort on that play. Tough Borland gives great effort on that play, and that's about the pursuit that Greg Madison talks about. And Sean kind of stops him just enough to stop his feet, and then here comes the pursuit. They make the play, and that was a big play in the game.
Right next door, Steve.
Yeah, Coach. I want to ask about the Dobbins long touchdown. On the replay, it appears Hausman seals off one side, and the three interior linemen all hit their blocks and everything. He has to make one guy miss, and he's off to the races. Just in general, the execution of that play seemed like it was as good as it could be against a quality defense, a very good front seven, and in general, just the play of the offensive line to date. Just your thoughts on how this has clicked together for them.
Yeah, it was a 3rd and 2. We put formation into the boundary, and I thought our guys did a really good job of getting to the second level. Josh Myers did a really good job getting up on Bocce there. We got good movement on the front side, and if you watch it on film, that as Justin disconnects, that safety took maybe a step or 2 steps because he thought maybe Justin had the ball, and I think that was enough to get him squared out the front side. The other guy who made a big block on that was KJ Hill on the walkout. He got on his inside number, and that sprung it. But it was well done by everybody. To hit a big play like that, all 11 have to do great. If 10 guys or 9 guys do their job, it goes for 10 or 12. But everybody has to do their job for a big play like that, and they did.
And just offensive line, just your thought. I mean, it was a group that had never played together. I mean, you insert Jackson at the absolute last minute, wasn't here in the spring, and it seems like that group has played pretty well today.
I would say Jonah is as close to a man in pro as I've been around in a long time. He's a great young man who really has immersed himself in this program. The guys really have taken to him, and he's got a great way about him. And like you said, for a guy to come into that room with a lot of pride and a lot of history, and it's not easy. We got a strong culture in that room, and for a 5th-year senior to come into that room, get embraced, and then do it the way he's doing, that says a lot about who he is. But then it also says a lot about the culture of that offensive line room right now, which is, I think, one of the best cultures we have on the whole staff, and that's a tribute to what Stud has done with that room. I think it's tremendous right now. They're playing with great passion. They're solving the problems. They're playing with great energy. So all positive there. But again, the challenge is, can we keep it up now? Because if we come out and don't do that and don't finish and don't play with that edge, then obviously we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Final 2 questioners. 4th row left, Andy.
Yeah, Coach. Don't want to ask any more about NFL rumors, but you said you said a couple times now you plan on being at Ohio State the next 5, 10, 20 years. You've had jobs, both at the college and NFL level. When was it you decided that your more permanent career path was to be the head coach in a major college program at Ohio State as opposed to the NFL?
When we had to move our family 3 times in 3 years. I mean, that was not good. And that's the thing that I don't know if people realize is when you have to move your family. You have a young family, when you're moving them all over the place, it is the worst thing to go home to your family and tell them we got to move again. And they got to be the new kid again, and your wife has to figure out a new set of friends again. It's just not good, and certainly Nina and I didn't grow up that way. We grew up in the same house for our whole lives, and all of our family's still back in the same hometown. So that was hard times for us. And then I said, never again. I don't want to do it anymore. And she said the same thing, and that was the decision that we made.
And final questions, 4th row middle, Joe.
You guys blocked a few kicks early in the season. Drew Chrisman's been a model of consistency punting. How would you evaluate each of the special teams units through 6 games?
I think we've been solid. We missed 2 blocked field goals by, as close as you could possibly miss a blocked field goal. The second one, Chase is right there, and I don't know how it maybe just slid by his fingers and he missed it. I think if he kicks it down the middle, we're probably blocking it. I think that we've done a good job with the punt blocking, field goal blocking. Our return game has just been okay. I think our punt game has been solid. I think Drew's doing a good job. I thought we did a good job the other night of covering. I think they had 0 return yards. So overall, it's been solid. I still think our return game can be better, but overall, special teams has been solid.
Hey, Ron,
Yeah.
did you get to watch the game last night at all? Did you get to watch any of that game? Did you see Nick
I did. I watched the first half. Yeah.
What'd you think about the way Nick Bosa played in that game?
Oh, I was proud of the way he played. Yeah, it was great to see him healthy and running around making plays, and he was a terror out there. Yeah.
Hey, somebody left one of those things last week. Yeah, some black one. I've got it. Yeah. Didn't look. I was too interested in making noises into it.
Jack Murphy Stadium.
Yeah, yeah.
Done hoping.
Yeah, it looks like one of these. Bill, we'll make it happen if it's. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
The floor for Coach Madison. Third row left. Dan from 11 Warriors.
Greg, a few times on Saturday night, you guys used a package where you had a three-man front. You had Zach Harrison in there a couple times at nose tackle, Robert Landers in there a couple times. Just what does that package bring in those third down pass rushing situations?
Well, it gives us the question is about the third down package where you had a kind of different people in there. What that allows us to do is to get speed on the field at positions where we want it. In other words, you got a guy like Zach that is a very, very fast, can drop, can do a lot of things. So it allows us to put different people on the field that can do different things.
About Zach in particular, just how pleased have you been with his progression
Oh,
in the first 6 games?
Zach's working extremely hard, and I'm very pleased with him. He's just a typical Buckeye that works as hard as he can each day, and he's got a lot of talent, and he's got great character, and he wants to be a great football player. And so, he works with Larry, and every day you see him get better.
Far left, Lori, from 610 WTVN.
Coach, the assistants here seem to love working with Ryan Day, and I'm wondering why you feel that is, and how far it can go toward establishing sort of not a permanency, but a continuity among the coaching staff year after year.
I didn't get the first part. I'm sorry.
Why do people like working with Ryan Day?
Well, the question, why do you like working with Ryan Day? He's who you want to work with. I mean, when you look at this profession, you want to work with guys that have great character, that care about players more than anything, that are very, very genuine. You know, they're not egotistical. They're looking at being the best football coach that they can be, and the best person, the best father, the best husband. You know, to me, that's as good as it gets, and that's what he is. And I think everybody sees that who has the opportunity to work with him.
He says that feeling of camaraderie among the coaching staff filters down to the players. Is that how you feel it works? Or
Yeah, definitely. I think anytime you feel sincere about somebody, and it isn't phony and it's not fake, and it's what you really, really feel. Our players see the same thing, you know, and I think that's what you're seeing now with our coaching staff and with our head football coach and all parts of it.
Yeah, along those lines, Greg, when you got here, did you immerse yourself? Did you read a bunch of stuff about Ohio State football, about its traditions, its history, et cetera? I mean, how did you immerse yourself in it so that you could talk, you know, fluently to recruits, et cetera, about what it means past the X's and O's?
I think I've played against Ohio State, I don't know, maybe 15 times. I didn't have to study anything about Ohio State. Believe me, I know a lot about Ohio State. I knew a lot about every time I had the opportunity to play against them. I knew it was a tremendous, tremendous program. It's as good as it gets, you know. And so I didn't have to read anything about it. Believe me, I knew very well about this program.
And one of the quick, you know, when you watch a team develop through a year, it looks like Shaun Wade now is factoring heavily. Not that he wasn't to begin with, but what have you seen out of him over the first 6 games that, you know, kind of like, I don't know, paints your picture going forward as far as what you want out of the defense?
Well, you know, I think that's that question and that comment that you're making about Shaun Wade could be made about a number of our players, and that's what I really, really like. I think now you're at the 6-game point. You know, you just finished 6, and now you have a week. You kind of go back and self-scout yourself and really look at yourself the way the people you play look at you, and we feel the same thing. I mean, I think Shaun and a lot of our guys in the back end, the linebacker position up front, are developing like we want them to. And we all are realistic. We all understand that we have to get better. You know, 6 games is 6 games. That's all good. That's done. You know, but the young men that we're coaching and the guys that we have the opportunity to coach with really, really are looking forward to getting better every day. And I think that's what you're seeing. They're not satisfied with where they're at right now. And, you know, Shaun's one of those guys. I mean, we've been really pleased with him.
Right, Austin, Lettermen Row.
Along those lines, Greg, it's like Josh Proctor's out there seemingly a little bit more. Cameron Brown filled in pretty well on Saturday night. Is there a sense for you guys that this off date and through 6 weeks that the depth is actually starting to build a little bit?
Yes, I mean, it's we're trying to play anybody that has earned the right to play, and that's what I alluded to earlier. Our kids in practice extremely hard, and they bought in very, very, you know, to the top as they can, and so therefore when it gets time, when somebody gets a little tired or somebody needs to come off, it's great to be able to put somebody else in there, and then they step forward, and you're seeing that more and more.
You've been doing this a long time. I've asked you before about Chase Young and getting the chance to coach him. And is there anybody else that you would compare him to that you've been around in your career?
No. I mean, I don't like to compare. I don't like to compare players, and I get your question. That's a great question. I don't like to compare him because he's his own person. You know, I just know this, that he's very, very talented. He works extremely hard. He has tremendous character. He's got all of it. You know, and so that's all I'll say on that.
Front row left, Nathan from Cleveland.com.
You mentioned, with Zach Harrison, you mentioned him being a typical Buckeye. You worked pretty hard at one point to try to not make him be a Buckeye. I'm just curious, is there anything that you saw from him at that point, what he's doing now, any way that he surpassed what you would have expected at this point or surprised you?
No, you saw that in him all the time. You know, you saw all the things that Larry is working with extremely hard with. I mean, you've got a young man that's got great height, great range. He's as fast as some running backs at places. He's got great character. He works extremely hard. He's tough. You know, and the technique that Coach Johnson's working with him just gets him better and better. And no, he's just what you thought he would be.
You mentioned the character. Why, is there any way that's especially crucial for a true freshman as far as why he's able to have success so quickly?
Well, yeah, what happens a lot of times, the freshmen, when they come in, they sometimes can go either way. If they're not playing a lot or as much as they were recruited to play, you know, some of these young men in today's recruiting, you're recruiting them like they're first-round picks before they've ever played, you know, and the most talented ones are recruited very, very heavily. Well, all of a sudden you get here and you see Jonathan Cooper and you see Tyreek and you see some of the guys that are standing there that haven't played a whole bunch yet, and you can either go one or two ways. And he, like a lot of our guys, have gone this way. And that's a real credit to, obviously, Coach Johnson, but it's also a real credit to our players. Our players do a great job of mentoring young kids. And I think that's something that is really coming forward now as we go.
Front row middle, Joey from the Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan has mentioned a couple of times that when it comes to defensive game planning during the week, he's only involved very little. A lot of his focus is with the offense and special teams. How typical has that been over your coaching career, where maybe an offensive coach isn't sticking his tentacles in the defensive room as much?
That's been very typical over my career. You know, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of outstanding head coaches, and most of the time that's the way it is. And sometimes if you know, and I want to say this though. Ryan has given us some advice, and he has suggested things that would really hurt him on offense, and we've listened, and we've added some of those things, and they've been very good for us. But sometimes when you have the expertise that he does in the offensive part of it, and you try to go two ways, it doesn't work for anybody, and he does such a great job at the offense. It's, you know.
Is this the main advantage of it? Where he can kind of concentrate on offense and you guys can concentrate on defense?
Yeah.
What do you see as the main advantage?
Yeah, I think it is, and I think you have to be with that group that you're with a lot of time. You can't just step in and say, I'm going to do this now and then come back. You know what I mean? And he spends a lot of his time with the offense.
Second row right, Tony from the Ozone.
Greg, having a third corner like Sean Wade would be a luxury for some. I think in this defense it's a necessity. What does he allow you guys to do?
Well, he allows us to be able to match personnel groups, you know, so that if a team's going to bring out 4 wide receivers, for example, you don't have to narrow down what you call because of who's out there physically, you know, and so you can therefore match what they give you and then still have the same aggressive attitude.
And then corners overall are generally a chatty bunch on the field. How do you feel about corners who talk? What is your general theory on?
Well, you're out there in front of the whole world now, you know, and especially when you play as much man-to-man coverage as we do, you better be a little different out there, and you better have confidence, or you just aren't going to make it out there. I mean, you're out there, just think about that for a second. I mean, you got that whole field, and you are out there one-on-one, and you're not going to get any help, you know, so you better have a lot of confidence in yourself, and you better have personality.
So you give them enough room to express that, but how do you?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you say give them room. That's just, to me, the stereotype of the corners that I've been around, you know. And again, it goes back to character and discipline, which we have here, and that's why you always go to that point and you can't go over it. And I think our young men understand that because it's a team.
Second row left, Stephen.
Yeah. There's a lot of elements of this defense that are just better than last year, but one of those that really stands out is in the red zone. You guys have only given it 4. I think you have 4 touchdowns and 4 field goals, and you've even blocked some field goals this year. Like, what's clicking in the red zone this year for you guys?
Well, I think we understand that that's a very, very big part. We talk about a number of things that to be a really, really good defense you have to do. And sudden change, for example, is one where you start on your side of the 50-yard line. You want to rise up and play there. You want to show everybody who you are defensively there. The same thing is true when you get down in the red zone. That if you can be the kind of defense that holds an opponent to 3 points and not touchdowns, that's a huge boost. And that goes all the way through your team. And so that's why we've worked very, very hard on that part of it.
Right next door, Bruce. Brendan White, great year last year. Not getting as many snaps maybe as people expected this year. Is that style of defense? Is that just guys ahead of him a little bit better?
Yeah, he is getting. He's not getting as many reps maybe as he got last year when he was starting at the free safety position at the end of the year. He's playing the bullet Sam backer position, which is a one-player position. And if you look at our guys that rotate in, I would say he's in there as much or more than anybody else. And it's early. Everybody goes, well, he's not. He changed from a position where he was a safety down to a linebacker type position, and he's getting better and better every week. And he in games that we've played so far, and I think of Nebraska and I think of the others, he had a number of reps, and he will continue to get reps.
So we're more likely to see that position, whether it's him or not, on the field against a run-heavy team or against a team where you need a guy to cover?
Well, it'd be both. It'd be both, and that's the thing. The thing that's happened is in some places where you have to substitute when a team is maybe a pass-happy team. Well, Pete Warner's done a great job, and therefore has given us the luxury where we don't have to substitute to be able to, on a third down, have that taken care of. Well, the same thing's happened with Brennan. He's done a great job and showed he can play the run, and therefore now I can substitute him on first down and not just on third down.
I'd like to address your comments about Ryan and why he resonates with the staff and the players. You've worked for Urban, have you worked for Harbaugh? How's he different?
I don't know if I don't like to compare head coaches. They're all very, very good. Like I say, I'm a lucky guy. To have the opportunity to have worked for those three very, very successful coaches, I kind of pinch myself every once in a while. I don't want to compare them. I just they're all very, very good.
And final questions, fourth row left. Jared from WCMH, Channel 4.
Hi, Greg. Obviously, you've had a nice luxury here the last couple weeks getting some guys back at defensive end healthy. Jonathan's back, Tyreek's back. I'm curious how that affects the way that you go into game planning of figuring out a rotation. I'd imagine it's a great problem to have, right? How do you get those guys on the field? But how do you go about determining how many snaps, who comes in, situational? How does that work?
Well, we have a very, very experienced and talented staff, and each position coach handles his players and knows exactly how he wants to do it. And for example, like in the defensive line, like Larry may say, okay, I'm going to play this guy 20 plays, and then he'll have somebody chart that throughout the game. And or you may say at a linebacker, I'm only going to play this linebacker if he was nicked up, only going to play at the most 4 at one time, 4 plays. Then he's out. So we do that. We have somebody charting that for us, and then they'll come to us and say, okay, he's had 4 plays. Okay, put the next guy in. And that's the luxury of having a lot of depth or some talented depth.
Coach, thank you very much.
And thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Jalen Holmes, Tyquan Lewis, Nick Bosa, and Sam Hubbard, those 4 defensive ends, all had between 526 and 533 snaps for the season. So like it was like 6 or 7 snaps separated all 4 of those guys.
What those guys ever do?
Yeah.
I just feel like I've sat through a deal of Final Jeopardy where you knew that was the one question you wanted to get asked. It's great, isn't it?
I bet it all.
Yeah. All in.
Northwestern also has an off week this week, fellas. Do we know that?
And are they sending you new stuff? Have you heard, or?
I heard that there's a limited amount of credentials. I haven't heard if they're sending me stuff or not. No, I take it. You guys will get credentials. People that will get.
Well, no one there can care. They're 1 and 4. They're awful. They're also
See you at 1 o'clock tomorrow. BB's trying to crash, guys.
Sorry, y'all get the benefit of that.
All right, folks, we were going to open up the floor for Coach Kevin Wilson. Over here to the right, Clay from WSYX.
Coach, just curious if you saw Nick Bosa last night put the whammy on Baker Mayfield and his little antic after that Buckeye history endures kind of thing.
My son sent that to me. I didn't see it, but.
You saw it after he sent it to you? Okay. Any comment on that, sir?
Well, we're not allowed to taunt in college, so. We had our chance, and we didn't come through. So, but it looked like they're playing well. Looked like he's doing great. It looks like their team was really, really good. And I had Tevin Coleman, old running back from Indiana, popped a few runs in there. And when I was a young coach at Oklahoma, George Kittle was a high school kid growing up, so watching him play was kind of fun. You know, with some of those guys involved in that game.
Far left, Lori from 610 WTVN.
Coach, every assistant that we've talked to so far has pretty much raved about working with Ryan Day. I'm wondering what your experience has been working with him as the head coach.
Again, very positive. You know, we were pretty close the last few years working together anyway, and so I think I personally felt I had a good pulse of him within our offense. I mean, in my world, even though he's the head guy, we're really working a lot offensively. And as we've went through that the last few years, so it's always been very, very positive. And, you know, again, a lot of respect for what he does, how he does it. I think with my background offense, his background offense, I think we complement each other with some of our strengths and views. And to me, when you're looking at football as a coach, it's no different than in the art world when you go to a museum and you look at a piece of art, people see different things. You know, I see things differently. I don't see them right. I don't see them wrong. I have a view, and I see things. He has a view. Coach Yursich has a view. Coach Alfred, Coach Stud, Coach Hart. We all have a bunch of different views. And then what he does in our room and does a great job just managing that. And we try to streamline it so we don't get all over the place. But he's great with, you know, we still spend a lot of time as far as with work, the volume of work. But I think he's very respectful of time, and we can get breaks to get with your family. For example, my Friday night's a big night of prep. I've been fortunate to see my kid play every home game that we've been home. I saw my son play a Friday night game. You know, Coach Meyer would do that and go see Nate play. So I appreciate the opportunity to also, and you're in a great working environment, but you have a lot of family time, which is really cool.
Front row left, Nathan from Cleveland.com.
Just curious what your thoughts on the offensive line after you watched the film from Saturday.
You know, we're playing really hard, and sometimes it's not really as clean or ID'd, or defenses are so multiple where they're coming from, and all of a sudden there's a safety involved in the run game, and you didn't recognize it, and you thought you were working to a linebacker, but in fact that linebacker actually got a little minused over, and it's a safety, and all of a sudden the lineman slanted into a gap. So sometimes there's some muddy water out there, and it's not clean, but they're playing so hard and rolling off the ball, and as the game gets going with Josh and Wyatt and Joan inside, they get a lot of confidence communicating, and you can just see them playing with momentum. And you see them, even though it's not clean all the time, and the way that J.K. and Master and what Tony's doing with the running backs, those guys are running hard. I think the tight end guys are complimenting those guys well. I think it's not pretty all the time, but I think when you play, you can feel us. you can feel them. You know, you watch sometimes really good defense, you can feel the tape. I think you can feel our offense right now as we're building momentum, and I think really good teams build momentum as the year goes. I think really good running teams build momentum. We're going to play some great run defenses in this league down the stretch. You do every year. I don't know if we played well the other night, but we played awfully hard, and there was a lot of good plays that happened in the run game. That's a credit to those guys and Coach Stud, and I think their effort and mindset, and also the way they're taking care of their bodies and practicing well, because when you're a big dude up there banging now, that adds up. There's a way that we need to practice, that we learn how to play the game right without beating ourselves up, and there's a way that they have to learn how to sleep and eat properly and come in so they can play. It's a fun group right now. I enjoy watching them, enjoy working with them a little bit too.
The momentum, but then you're also talking about things like, you know, taking care of your body. So when it comes to an off week, what is kind of the balance between recuperation and rest, but also wanting to keep the edge that you have now from being 6-0 and the momentum you built?
Yeah, Coach Day talks a lot to our guys, and they're not there yet because of their age, but he talks about, you know, you want to be a pro. And professionally, you know, your body in this season has value to your career and to what you're trying to accomplish as a player. And so how do you take care of yourself? We can take the foot off the accelerator and lose momentum, which happens a lot in open dates. You can also over-practice as a coach or as a player and push too hard. So there's a balance. And I think, you know, the kids that have maturity and the coaches that can see the big picture and have the maturity can find that balance where you get the team fresh, but we can also be fresh and stale. We don't want that. I mean, there's a fine line there. So I think it'd be interesting as we go through this week. And, of course, the key is when we crank back up on Sunday to build momentum and get back into the flow for those next two games.
Third row middle, Dan from 11 Warriors.
Kevin, you guys started Joshua Allaby at right tackle on Saturday. Brandon Bowen ended up playing most of the game. Just how do you feel about where you guys are at that right tackle position right now?
They're both pretty good. They both actually been just minor, but just some little bumps and bruises that they've been dealing with. I think Josh haven't played a lot. You know, Brandon Bowen was a little banged up going into the Nebraska game, was available. Josh went out playing well. Brandon had not practiced a lot that week. Last week they both had practiced a lot, but actually having played more, I think Josh Allaby was a little banged up and he struggled early. And Coach Stud went with Brandon. We need those guys are capable of being really good, but I think we might need both to be really good, if that makes sense. And they both can play off each other, complement each other, keep each other fresh, keep each other healthy, and they both have some different strengths. So I think as we go down the stretch, I don't know if kind of get tied in. It doesn't matter who's going out there first. They're all playing, and I got a feeling both those cats are going to be playing for us down the stretch in this Big Ten run.
Overall, how do you feel about the way the depth has developed? Guys like Petit Frere and Harry and Gavin and Matthew, how do you feel about how ready those guys are if they need to step in and play?
I'm very confident with the two you mentioned for sure with Nick, even though the two fifth-year guys are probably a little bit more along with knowledge, but he's had a tremendous offseason, spring. I think he's ready and able to go. I think Coach Stud has a little bit more confidence in a couple of these Big Ten games here with the fifth-year guys, with the veteran side. I think Harry has been very first of all, I think Josh Myers is playing real good. I mean, real good. And real good. And he's playing good. Harry's as good a freshman as I've seen come in and can handle the strength and the mental side of center. And I think he's very capable and able to play right now. He's not because the other guy's playing outstanding. But for a freshman, he is well advanced. And he's done a nice job. We got to keep bringing along our other guard spot there with Gavin Cupp and the young guys. So I think what you could see too, if we had an issue we actually did in practice, is Brandon Bowen could kick back down in the guard where he's played before. So, not that we're a revolving door, but we got some options, and Coach Stud will do a great job with those guys.
Third row right, Rob from the Dispatch.
Kevin, you've been around some pretty decent quarterbacks through your years, and then you saw up close and personal Dwayne last year. You didn't know what Justin really was bringing to the table till now. What do you like about him? Are you surprised at all with how advanced he's looked this early?
Well, okay, my concern was, because you made a great point about Dwayne. Dwayne had the value, in my opinion. I was only here for one of those years, but watching JT prepare. And because he was a great prep guy. And the time he put in and the study, and we're limited with how much time we can to do, but what he did to get his mind, his body, and everything ready to play at a high level. And I think Dwayne watching that, and I think it's evident by the way Joe Burrow is watching. You know, Joe was here for 3 years developing, and I think that was an awesome deal. I didn't know with Justin coming in, no disrespect, because you're not sitting there, and I know they're doing a great job at Georgia, great coaches and great players, but just what kind of prep guy he was. He's done an awesome job with that. Now, these things are recorded, and I did say back in preseason he's as good a quarterback as he's as talented an athlete I've been, so I'm going to stick with that statement right now. He's a talented guy. I've just been impressed with the way he's prepared, and I've been very impressed with his maturity and calmness during the game. And listen to Coach Yurcich on the headset in between drives, because Coach Day gets there a little bit, but he gets involved with the game. So Coach Yurcich is the guy talking with Justin between drives. Hey, what did you see there? Why did you do that? Did you see this? And I'm kind of third-party listening once in a while to those conversations. He's very, very calm and very mature during the flow of the game. And he can articulate what he sees, what he likes, what he'd like to do, and he does a great job working with Mike and with Coach Day.
How about his toughness? Not that Dwayne wasn't tough, but his toughness has been brought up. Coach Day talked about it. Where are you on that line of comparing him to other guys? How important is toughness in a QB?
Well, I think there's different types of toughness. Now, there's some quarterbacks that to me can be real tough and never take hits, but just the way they stand in there, their presence, their eye contact, the way they look at people, and the way they it's toughness, meaning you're big enough and strong enough to run through a hit and take a hit. That means you're physically tough. I think all the great quarterbacks have a degree of toughness. JT was extremely tough physically and mentally as a quarterback, and Justin's early in his career, but on the physical side, he's outstanding. And what I'm talking about, what I feel is he's a very mature young man. I think he's got a chance to show a lot of that mental toughness that all the great quarterbacks have. So he's on track to have that skill at a high level. And that's a talent you don't put a stopwatch on. That is a great talent to have.
Right behind him, Patrick from Buckeye Sports Bulletin.
In the second quarter, you had a lot of success running the football, and it seemed like a couple of those runs were really sprung by big blocks by Austin Mack, Jake Hausman. I know Ben Victor had a couple as well. How much do the contributions from the outside, from guys who aren't traditionally expected to do a ton of blocking, how does that free up the interior line? I know Josh Myers had a big block on that 67-yard touchdown run. How does it free up those guys to make plays down the field, and how does that change the way that you can play offense?
Yeah, I mean, really, you're making some great points there. To me, running the ball is an attitude. It's a mindset, and it's a group set. But so is passing the ball. You don't pass the ball without great protection and spacing and speed and timing, so it takes all 11. I think as the game goes along, if we were to take a sledgehammer and start smashing the walls here, we used to always say pound the rock's the old analogy, right, Jim? We're going to pound the rock. Well, the rock doesn't bust on the first pound. Matter of fact, you don't even make a dent or a crack. But if you keep pounding on the rock and you keep pounding on the rock and you keep pounding on it, as an old Coach Walker did, you keep pounding that rock, it'll eventually bust. I think it's the second, third quarter, as we started early, it doesn't look like much is happening, but if your line keeps coming off those blows and that momentum kind of adds up. So that's a part of maybe the run game as it continues. Plus, as coaches, sometimes maybe you're a little too cute, or you're trying to whatever, you get into a flow of what they're doing. Like we made a couple adjustments, hey, they're supporting this play this way, so get to this run. And some of those runs went for 6 and 7 and 8 that in the first half went for 2 and first quarter went for 2 or 3 or nothing. It was just slight, subtle adjustments that we had to make as coaches. Players have to make those adjustments. You're a wide receiver, you come here to catch your balls. And right now we're running the ball well, and we're trying to get the flow with our quarterback and our receivers in place. But to have those guys sell it and block is the sign of a selflessness that a great team has, and that's tough. I saw Luke Farrell after the game and with his parents, and I made a comment. I said, it's amazing. 4 games you didn't have a catch and you didn't say a negative word. But it's amazing how the good Lord takes care of those who don't complain. And all of a sudden, he wasn't even supposed to even really be in the flow of the picture. And then, boom, there's the ball. Come on. All of a sudden, you make a touchdown. And like I told him, as soon as that happened on the headphones, I go, hey, a blind hog finds an acre, and anybody can get lucky and make a play. We got to play a good game. There's a lot of football to play. He played a good football game. And that's what, to me, to see Austin Mack have the great competitive Nebraska touchdown catch is awesome. But to sell up for your brother is a part of our brotherhood. And I appreciate the way our perimeter guys are, because they want the ball. Ben Vick wants more of those touchdowns. So does Garrett Wilson. I thought Garrett Wilson did a tremendous job for freshman blocking the other night. You didn't mention him that's part of him. Is you didn't sign up for that technically when you signed here, but really once you get here, that's what you buy into. And I appreciate our guys for doing that.
Kevin, you talked about Luke getting that catch, and I know you can't just measure receptions for success for tight ends. You guys do a lot of other things positionally. Have they got the amount of targets that you expected so far, more or less, through 6 games?
Right now, we're probably a little bit, not in general, just offense, maybe a little bit less because the running game's going. I think we're just kind of lean on that and getting the feel for Justin as a new quarterback and getting him off and started. So in general, probably, I think last year probably a little bit more in that 35 to 40 range throwing. Now we're in that 25 to 30, so we're just a little bit down. And that's just kind of where we're now, and that's kind of week to week, and that I'm sure will change as we keep moving. But it's tough because guys want those targets, and the hardest thing here is to keep great players who every player still has that ego, how to keep him to buy into the team aspect and be humble, because that's a hard job. And
what's that conversation like?
I don't know. I mean, you don't control the reads. Even when we've had, for example, specifically in the tight end world, we've had a couple games with specific things that were going to work. Then the flow of the game just never happened. Just never happened. And all of a sudden, here's a play tonight that he's a part of the progression. He's like number 4 in the deal. Seldom, if ever, comes your way, and it becomes a touchdown that we needed that really got the momentum going in that second quarter for us. So, bottom line, we as coaches, it's your ability to connect with the players. As Coach Day was talking to us about today, and as much as anything, if the way I think this world and the way the good Lord's made us, the more we give to others, you're going to get it back. If it's about you, I know every time it's always been about me, it's not seemed to go right. When it's about others, it's amazing how that works out. And then you just keep selling that to the team. And right now, with the way Coach Day and the staff's got it going, there's a lot of buy-in with that right now. We just want to keep that going.
When you notice,
line? Oh, does he cut line? Yeah. Lunchroom. I've seen him cut line in lunchroom.
I have cut line many times. Talk about your offensive line past what you were just talking about a while ago. It seems like they've also kind of, through 6 games, passed the toughness test. If that's, I don't even know if you have a toughness test, because to play that position you have to be tough. But have you seen a line become tougher every week? What just in that regard?
Yeah, and again, another great question. I personally have always felt from years ago, and you're sitting up at Jim and play. It's a tough position, but when you pop the pads, you have to build that back up. You don't start back where you were. And then we live also in a day and age where you can overhit and overpractice. So how the balance of building the contact volume you need, keeping your players healthy, keeping them fresh, but also keeping them tough. I think we've done a great job with some of our good work and how to make it real work without a lot of volume, but make it quality. And when we go, it's got to be real. We do that in some tackling drills. It's got to be real, but we also can't get guys hurt. It's also just a little bit of you get what you emphasize. And we've emphasized that we want to be a team that continues to play the game with a little bit of physical presence and toughness. And like I said, that being said, there's been some positive momentum as we go through an open date. Maybe you got to find ways to keep that. And we have another one coming up, and then we'll be a break before bowls. How do you keep that momentum and not lose that edge? But I feel we're like a boxer. Those boxers, they go into training. They take some time off, but then they go in 6-8 weeks, and it's not learning how to punch. Sometimes it's learning how to take punch and to get your body hardened up. And right now we're at a good place with our offensive line and our offense with that right now, and our running backs.
And one more thing, when you guys sit there and watch video and you see how Justin Fields now is affecting how the other team reacts, like on an option play where the safety takes one bad step, and suddenly it springs J.K. Dobbins on that 6-7 yard run. It helps spring him, and you see on the play to Victor, the guy left his area because he thought Justin was going to. What does that just do? What kind of Pandora's box does that open for you guys from a planning standpoint?
Again, every time that quarterback's a run threat, and also a real throw threat. The more you have now. Again, that's in our room with Coach Yursich, Coach Day, and myself with Stud and Alford and Brian, just how not to get all over the place. So like saying you have Pandora's box, let's don't open it up. But we also have a lot of things we can go to. So his ability is a unique skill set. He's as skilled as I've been around. And at the same time, I think he's scratching the surface on the player he can be, and that's exciting. But also we got to be smart, keep him healthy, and keep him moving in the right direction. But there's a lot of things you can do. Just don't want to be too cute and like you say, get humbled.
Front row middle, Joey from the Dispatch.
Kevin, you were kind of in Ryan's shoes before as a head coach who kind of had a big hand in the offensive game planning, play calling. How do you think Ryan's done this year with doing that, and what's the key for a head coach to?
Well, I think he's done really well, and one of my things, having been there, that I actually said to him, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, was that whatever we're doing, if he doesn't get a comfort level in practice, he's not going to be comfortable wanting to call it or do it. And so there's got to be the right amount of time, whether it be with our staff or what we're putting on the practice tape, and we're getting the looks we need, that he has confidence in what's going on. Because in his world, you can get pulled in a lot of directions and you can get thinned out. And if you get thinned out and you feel the football side of you and the time you want to spend watching tape or prepping's not as high as you'd ideally like it to be because of some things that Jerry and you guys want him to do all the time, and you pull him here and there to do different things, right? Well, that being said, it's our job to make sure that he's comfortable and we've got a direction going, that when he comes back in, because if he feels good, he's going to be aggressive in the play calling, aggressive in the direction, and your team's in attack mode. So I think it's our job, having been there, to help him, but also him help himself get to a place where he can stay positive and aggressive in what's going on. And what he's seeing, he likes, because if you like it during the week of practice and you got a lot of confidence in your quarterback and your line, what's going on, then you have a chance to be a lot more aggressive as you go out and attack. Now, you got to execute on Saturday, but I think a whole lot of that is how we go through the week, keep him in sync without wearing him out, so he can be aggressive. He himself can be fresh. We talk about people getting fresh. Coaches need to be fresh. Coach Stoops was always big at Oklahoma on that, staying fresh, because you're confident and you're more aggressive, more assertive. And right now in 6 weeks, I think he's done a masterful job of that. I think he's been awesome.
You were telling him that during a practice, or?
During one of our, we were just talking prior to a meeting one day about something, and I said, hey, Coach, listen, I know, we got to get it where you're feeling good about it, because if you feel good about it, it'll flow good. And so that's just a little bit of, that's the player's job to practice well. It's the coach's job to be prepared. It's us to put together a great practice script. And again, we do a phenomenal job. We get in practice, basically, Coach Ursus and myself, we run the defense. And we're bringing every wheeling, dealing, blitzing, everything we can think of to make our players work. Because the harder practice is, the greater the practice, the greater the game day is going to be. And the more we can make practice a learning environment, but also a confidence builder, I think puts a lot of trust in Coach Day as we keep moving forward.
Folks, I got to wrap it up here. We got time for just a couple more questions. Front row left, Doug from Cleveland.com.
Kevin, we know you're saying, like, when it comes to Luke, it's not about just one play, it's about how you play through the course of a game. But on that touchdown, he seemed pretty determined to find his way into the end zone one way or the other. What did you think of the way he sort of muscled through some of those guys?
I thought he did a great job, too, just taking care of the ball, because as he spun off, he had the ball tight. There's 3 or 4 guys right around him, and it was a heck of a play. And I think, quite honestly, even a conversation I had post-game, he's played well for us. I think he is a better football player than he thinks he is. I'd like to see him play with a lot more confidence, swagger, whatever word you're looking at. I'd like to see, because I think he's capable of being a really complete tight end player. And not because you make one catch. I'm talking about the blocking game and his ability to finish some blocks. He's doing a great job in pass pro, does really well in perimeter. He's our most consistent guy. I'm really challenging him. As good as he's playing, I think he can be more of having that physical, dominating presence you want. I think he can really help us, and Rashad down the stretch, Jake and Jeremy as well.
He said after the game, getting into the end zone just was a big deal to him, that he could do that for his team in that environment. He said it almost made him emotional in the moment. Like, the idea of some of these guys, how much it means to them to do this kind of thing. When you hear one of your guys is so excited about that opportunity, what does that tell you about Luke, or about what you guys are doing here?
Well, one, you want all of them to feel away. It says a lot about Luke. Matter of fact, we went through a couple goals for this week, and one of his goals was to have better effort in practice and have better film study. And here's a guy, I think, doing it maybe the best of anyone I got, saying, I want to be better in those areas. So those are some of those neat skills and qualities that great players have. He's got a good physical skill set. He's got a great inner drive. And like I say, he's a little quiet. I'd like to see his confidence continue to grow. I think he's on the verge of being a really strong player.
Coach, thank you.
Thank you, guys.